Hi, Rick here from Marion for Models, DJI dealer from the UK and RC specialist for over 40 years. In this video I'm going to be covering the new Phantom 3, and this is going to be a quick start guide getting your Phantom all prepped up for flight and cover the basic flying features. Firstly, what do you get in the box? I'm going to spare you an unboxing video because let's face it, if you can't get it out of the box, then really multi-rotors aren't for you. So what you get is one Phantom 3. Comes in two versions. You've either got the Pro version, which has got the gold stripes, that comes with a 4K camera, or you would get the advanced version, which would come with silver stripes, and that comes with a 1080p camera. Also included, of course, you get the actual controller, which has Light Bridge, which is the latest video and transmission technology. You'll get a manual, which will come with a basic start guide and also some extra stickers. You'll get a full set of spare props along with the flying props, and you'll get a mains charger which will charge the main flight battery and also the controller. You'll also get a basic toolkit with it as well, which is handy. So the first thing we need to do is charge the battery. So the first thing we want to do is remove the battery from the Phantom 3. Now it's a straightforward charging clip, so if you're familiar with Inspire, it's the same as that. You've got the wee fitting in the back, pins like that, and then just simply slide it in. And then you'll get a scrolling bar like that. When the battery comes fully charged, the battery lights will actually go out altogether, but you can see the progress. So for example, this battery is probably about 60% charged. As it charges up, it'll start at the bottom one and kind of work its way up. Now there's also a second charging socket, obviously for the controller, so you can expose that by doing that, and then this one simply plugs into the side. Now it's like there's a grommet round the hole, so you've got to kind of push it in. Feels a wee bit tight, and then again you'll see here you've got a scrolling light. Now I've plugged them both in at the same time, but actually DJI recommend you don't charge the main power battery and the controller at the same time. However, I find if you're actually just doing a top up, so both units weren't completely flat, they were just needing sort of topped up from maybe flying the day before, I find it's okay. But if you're doing a full charge of the battery, do your battery, then plug the controller in and do that as well. Okay, now that you've got your battery charged and your controller charged, we can move on to the next section. So the first thing we need to do is put the battery in the model. Now you'll notice there's power pins on the side here, and you've got the same power pins on the side of the battery. So that just simply slides in, just make sure it goes all the way in and clicks and is securely into shape, in place. Now to turn each item on, it's quite simple. You've got the power button on the controller, you simply push it once, then push it and hold it. So we give it one push, then one push and hold. You'll see the lights scroll up here, and that's the controller on. And then to do the same with the Phantom, push it once, push it again and hold. So now that we've got the Phantom charged up and the controller charged up, we need to mount the actual tablet onto the controller itself. So the first thing we need to do is you get a supplied connector with it. Now generally comes with an Android connector, so if you're using an Apple device, you need to use your supplied Apple connector. So that just goes into what normally you would use for charging. So this one will just fit into the socket there. And then when you look on the back of the controller, you'll see a wee selection of sockets, and we want the USB one, and that simply plugs into there. And then we simply mount the tablet onto the actual device itself, onto the controller. Now if you're using a phone, as you can imagine, a phone will be smaller than a tablet, and that might not close down small enough, so you have these little catches that you pull out, and then you've got the wee button on the side which lets that out, and then the phone would just mount onto there. But as we've got a tablet, we can keep that in, and then the tablet just simply mounts on there and then screws down like that. So the first thing you need to do is you need to download your app, the DJI Pilot app. So if you're using iOS, if you just go to the App Store, type a search in for DJI Pilot, or if you're on the Android store, you can do the same. Once you've got the app downloaded, you just simply click on the icon.
Welcome to your aircraft. Please complete the aircraft status before taking off.
So the first thing we need to do is we actually need to set up the actual aircraft and get it registered. So the first thing you need to do is obviously just set up a name. So I'm just going to make it simple and call it P3. So P3, done. There we go, there's the name. But you can, of course, you can give it any name that you want. Press continue. Now it's going to ask you some basic setups here. So what this is actually asking, mode 2, what mode 2 is actually the control mode. So most commonly and literally everywhere, we all fly where the throttle, so that is the height control, is on the left-hand stick, which is mode 2. So we'll just stick with mode 2. We want all our measurements in metric, and of course you will pick whether you want NTSC or PAL, but of course we're in the UK, so we're going to pick the PAL. Continue. Now, as they come out of the box, they actually come on beginner's mode, and this is just in case if you're very new to multi-rotors that you don't kind of get away from yourself. And what it will do is it will actually limit things like the flight altitude and the distance to 30 meters on both. So if you are new, best just leave that on. But if you are not new and you're upgrading from a previous model of Phantom, you can certainly just turn that off, and then it will take the restrictions away. So press continue. Now, if you've not got a DJI account already, this part, as I have already got a DJI account, it's obviously going to tell that I have, so it's basically saying just confirm your account. So if you haven't got an account, you just have to go through a very short setup part, setting up an account. So as I've got an account, I've already done that, so it's basically just going to be a case of activate now. So what's happening now is the app's actually connecting with the actual Phantom just to activate it. So if you just give it a few moments to bob up and down, and then we have the app itself. Okay, so now you've got your model all ready, you've got it all registered, you've got it all charged up. We're just going to cover the basics of the application itself. So the first thing you need to do is obviously clicking on the actual camera. This will bring up your main camera mode. There we go. Right, so we can actually drag that back across because we don't need that just now. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to actually calibrate our compass. So the first thing we need to do is, you'll notice at the top there, it's actually saying there, safe to fly, non-GPS. That's actually because I'm indoors. If we were outdoors, that indicator would be green and we would be good to go. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to calibrate our compass first. So in this page, it will give you overall aircraft status. So as you can see just now, firmware is the latest version, that's good. But down here you'll actually see calibrate. So what we need to do is click on the calibrate. So to start the calibration, just click on the calibrate button, click on OK. And then the first thing we do, we want to turn the model in a 360-degree motion. There we go. And then here it will tell you when you're complete. Now tilt the model on its nose, do the same again, 360-degree motion. And then when that goes off, you're now completed the calibration. Simple as. Now you should always do the calibration outdoors, ideally away from anything electromagnetic interference, so any metal structures, etc. Don't do it next to your car or anything like that. Always just basically in the middle of a field, and that way it won't upset the compass when you calibrate it. Now, kind of just covering some of the basic features of the application. So as you can see across here, we've got our camera controls. So basically we can start and stop our camera here, or the video. We can change to camera there, and then obviously take a picture. We have basically function modes here, so you can set all your different video modes here or capture modes here. Just take that away. And if you want manual settings for the camera, there we go, and then it pops in across here. So if you don't want manual, you can just swipe that away. Then covering the sort of basic information on the actual tablet, here you're going to have your height, here you're going to have your distance, and these are basically your velocity here. And then the last one in the wee corner there is actually the optical flow system. So that's the sensors on the bottom of the Phantom. So if you're flying indoors, the Phantom can actually see the ground in its position, so it acts like GPS indoors and makes it very stable for flying indoors. So you've got basic information up here of what kind of image mode you're in, etc. So taking pictures on JPEG, taking video on 1080p there. Now down here we have the map. Now I'm actually using a sort of beta version of the actual application for Android, so as you can see it actually thinks I'm in mainland China, but normally your actual home location would actually be coming up there. So this is basically where you'll see where you're actually flying, and in future updates this is where the ground station system would be, and allow you to plot plot routes, etc., which it will follow. So we're just going to click that back there. Over here we've got our auto land, auto takeoff. So that's auto land. So if you're flying around and you just want to bring it home and set her down, then basically you slide that across and it will go into auto land. So we're not going to do that right now. And of course you've got one for auto takeoff as well. So by pushing that, sliding that across, the model will take off, sit at 1.2 meters in the hover and wait for you to take control. I'm a bit old school, so I prefer to actually physically take off myself. So rather than letting the model do it, your hands would be on the controls all the time. Always a good idea to do it that way. We have some basic settings over here. Again, I'll cover all these in detail in a dedicated video just for the actual application, but briefly going over it, you've got some of your measurement settings here. You've got showing your flight route data on the map. You can clear it. There's also a tutorial which is quite good. So if I actually flick that on, as you can see now, when you power it up, it will actually tell you what actually everything does, what all the indicators do, and every time you touch it, it will give you more information. So as you see there, you've got things like gimbal mode, etc., all there. So that's actually quite a handy feature to have while you're a beginner. But basically covering it, you've got things like your battery runtime across the top here. So as the battery goes flat, it'll run down, tells you how long it's got to go, and then when the actual warnings will instigate as well for like return to home if your battery gets that low. Here you've got some battery telemetry. Just click on there. So it'll tell you condition of your battery, and this is also where you'll make adjustments. But again, I'll cover all this in more detail in another video. And then we can return back to home, and that's you ready to fly. So the next thing we need to do is fit the propellers. Now there's two different styles of props. You'll notice you've got black and silver dots. And now the motors are kind of handed the same way. As you notice you've got a silver topped one and a black topped one. So simply the silver ones go on here. Now they're self-tightening props, so you just put them on and then spin them down. Same with this one, put it on and spin them down. Now, as a rule of thumb, you should never put your props on indoors. Only put them on when you're outdoors and you're actually ready to fly. So if the motors were to start for whatever reason, you would be in big trouble. So it's always a good idea as well. I tend to just nip the motor with my hand and just give it a little tighten up. And then that's the motors on properly. Okay, I'm just going to cover some of the basic controls on the actual controller here. So the ones that we have working from this side, this button here will start and stop your video. Over on this side, this is taking pictures. There we go. This is a menu button. So when you actually push this, it will actually bring up your photo album. And then when that's up, simply by scrolling through, you can actually scroll through your pictures. And then again, if you want to go back to your FPV feed, you just push that again. Now, back across here, this is your gimbal tilt. So this will tilt your gimbal up and down, and then this button here, this switch, this is your flight mode switch. So as it is in this position, this is in GPS. This is kind of really where you want to be if you're not sure. And then going one down, this is what we call attitude mode. So this takes the sort of location lock away. So the model, if it was just hovering, it would actually drift with the wind. So this is good for doing creative shots like panning shots with video, etc. And then the bottom one here, this is for your sort of custom flight mode. So you can use things like orientation control. What that means is when orientation control is on, regardless of the way that the actual model is pointing, when you push the stick away from yourself, the model will fly away from yourself. Again, if you're not sure, best just leave it in that mode there. Other thing to sort of point out as well, these are actually your aerial paddles here. Now, when it comes in the box, they're probably going to be folded down like that. Do remember to lift them up. And the kind of way you want them is you want them pointing to the model, and generally in a sort of slight V sort of formation. And that will give you the absolute best range of signal from the transmitter to the Phantom itself. Okay, now that we've charged our batteries up, we've familiarised ourselves with the application, we've got the propellers on, we're actually ready to actually learn how to start the motors. Now, what's required to start the motors is what we call a CSC, which is a combined stick command, so you don't accidentally arm the motor. So to start the motors on the Phantom, what we are basically going to do is pull the two control sticks down and towards each other to the centre. Now, I'm going to do this. Now, we are indoors, and I've obviously always ever told you, Don't have your props on in your model indoors, and certainly don't start your model indoors, but I'm just going to do this just to show you how it starts. So I'll just move the controller away to the edge here, just so I don't catch my fingers, and then we're going to pull the sticks down towards each other. And that's the motors running. So that would be now ready to take off. Now to shut the motors down, all you simply have to do is just pull the throttle stick back and hold it, and then the motors will disarm. So now you can move that and the model won't take off. Well, I hope you found this video helpful in setting up your new Phantom 3. You can check out my YouTube channel if you want to keep abreast of all the helpful how-to videos and reviews that we've done on the DJI products. Before I go, I'd just like to touch on safety. Remember, be a responsible drone flyer. Always keep 50 meters away from people, animals and structure, and never fly above 400 feet. And always remember to respect people's privacy. Always think about what you're filming and why you're filming it. And I'd just like to finish off by thanking my customers who support me. Without their help, I wouldn't be able to do all these how-to videos. So thank you very much and good night.